Right shoulder. Drew is absolutely hurt.
Doesn't this just look like a golf ball on a golf tee? That's all that's holding your shoulder. College football and NFL completely transformed after Drew Brees was not taken by the Dolphins and ended up at the Saints.
I got bones, I got bones, I got 206, I got 206, I got.
All right, guys, Doc Mirza here again. I want to address some questions. Thank you again for all the wonderful feedback. This has been great. I got a lot of great suggestions, and I'm going to start with one that I think is pivotal right now in what's happening in the NFL. Drew Brees. He's now leading in passing yards and doing great. So let's wind back the clock and find out what exactly happened. Many of you saw the injury. You may have heard about his shoulder reconstruction and surgery. It was a team of 4 surgeons that put him back together and got him out there to rehab his shoulder. And I think most people probably wrote him off. So great suggestion again. Let's go through what happened to him when he injured his shoulder. You saw the video. He's going down on the ground. So down on the field, his shoulder goes up and out. Now, if you have a dislocation, most of the time, especially with quarterbacks, they're throwing the ball like this. So their chest, body, arm, you have an external rotation moment arm, and then you have eccentric loading. So that means the arm is coming in while the body arm is extending out. So what happens is that pivotal point, that point where the glenohumeral joint is pivoting, and I'm going to show it to you on the cadaver model in a moment. But basically what's happening is this is really strained right here, and then you get hit as you're about to throw, and then it dislocates, and it usually comes out the front. But that's not what happened with Drew Brees. He went down on the ground with his arm up. So that means he was going down like this, his body continued going forward, and his shoulder went up and then dislocated inferiorly. Now, when we talk about dislocations, we always talk about the bone that's distal to the joint. So that means the part that's further away. So the shoulder girdle, so I'm going to bring up my model. So this is a shoulder, okay? Right here, collarbone, humerus, shoulder joint proper. This is the scapula, okay? So this is all the shoulder girdle itself, okay? Shoulder joint is here. What did he dislocate? He dislocated down at this level. So that means this humerus went up and then down inferiorly. So we look at this other model, which is a little older, but it's easy to show because it's completely apart. This is not what your shoulder does. This is what your shoulder does. So again, same thing I'm going to show you. Quarterback comes up, his arm goes out, and you can see that if you don't have the muscles and the restraints, it's going to pop out. Like imagine that. But you have all these muscles and capsule up in the front. So basically you go out, you pull back, and then you throw, okay? You throw like this, okay? So what happened with him, he goes down, his arm is up, so what happens? Boom, boom, okay? So instead of doing this and throwing, he went down to the ground and boom. So inferior dislocation versus an anterior dislocation. So one, it's much more rare to have an inferior dislocation. But not only that, he tore almost 360 degrees of his labrum, okay? Now in a traditional, I shouldn't say traditional, but in your typical shoulder dislocation that goes out the front, you tear part of the labrum, typically from about 2 o'clock position to 6, 7 o'clock. So that means we're going to take off the muscle here. Don't worry, we're not going to do that to you. So this labrum, there's a soft tissue layer on the bone. From about 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock, that's typically what's torn. With him going out the bottom, it tore almost the entire labrum off. So they had to repair the front and the back. So the entire labrum had to be repaired circumferentially all around, not just in the front, not just in the back. Because you can have a posterior dislocation, you can have your arm going in like that and getting pushed back. and that'll happen in certain jarring injuries. But in this case, it was inferior. It ruptured most all his labral connections and had to be all repaired and reconstructed just to be able to support that shoulder. Doesn't this just look like a golf ball on a golf tee? That's all that's holding your shoulder. You have a socket, which is like a golf ball tee, and you have a golf ball. Everything else is muscle, tendon, tissue, fascia, capsule, labrum. Everything is supportive stabilizers of the shoulder. Otherwise, this is just going to fall off easily one way or the other. We don't want that to happen. So that's why the body has created all these accessory and primary and secondary stabilizers to improve the overall three-dimensional kinematics of the shoulder, to allow these pro football players and Hall of Famers like Drew Brees to do what he can do. And for him to do this after that type of reconstruction is incredible. Let's think about what's going on in the medical staff's heads in Miami Dolphins when they decided they're not going to take Drew Brees. Okay, so again, this is my clinical medical speculation. I look at someone who had a 360-degree labral tear. The amount of healing, scar tissue, rehab, strength, recovery time required, taken along with the risk of re-injury. This golf ball on a golf tee is all you have. And now you've got some suture anchors holding the labrum together all around and then wanting that to heal. Now, we're really good at shoulder reconstruction, but what is the risk that he's not going to put his shoulder in this position again? So his shoulder is always going to be at high risk for injury. And if I think about it, and I'm on the medical staff at the Dolphins, I think, okay, high risk of injury, small player, major reconstruction, we should not take a risk on him. College football and NFL completely transformed after Drew Brees was not taken by the Dolphins and ended up at the Saints. So, very significant injury, not only for Drew, but for the entire game of football. Great question. Keep them coming.